Hello there, J Music here, and today I will be giving my thoughts on the 27 movie in the MCU, as well as the one movie that everyone seems to be talking about this day, Spider-Man No Way Home. There will of course be spoilers in this review, so if you haven't watched the movie and don't want to be spoiled, click off the video and come back when you have watched it. But if you have watched the movie or you just don't care about spoilers, feel free to continue on watching. So, Spider-Man No Way Home takes place directly after Spider-Man Far From Home, after Mysterio revealed Spider-Man's identity to the world. Peter, struggling to live a proper life and seeing the people around him being affected because of this, decides to enlist the help of Doctor Strange to make the world forget that he is Spider-Man. The spell tears a hole in their world, releasing the most powerful villains who have ever fought a Spider-Man in any universe. So this is the main plot of this movie. In preparation for this seemingly huge movie, I went back to watch both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies because I've never really sat down to watch them before. And I also do have a Spider-Man movie ranking video coming out, so keep an eye out for that. But all that aside, what did I really think about this movie? Spider-Man No Way Home is hands down the best MCU Spider-Man movie ever. It is far better than Homecoming and Far From Home, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man finally feels like he is given the full spotlight despite the numbers of characters in this movie. I also think that Tom Holland gave his best performance in the MCU yet in this movie with the emotional and heavy scenes. Even with so much going on in this movie, Peter Parker's relationship with his best friend and his girlfriend feels present and also the driving force behind Peter's motivation. I also applaud this movie for making me truly care about Peter and MJ's relationship with this time that they had. Tom Holland and Zendaya have good chemistry, perhaps not as great as Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but pretty good. On that topic, let's get to the biggest thing that a lot of people have been talking about for almost a year now. And it's also the worst kept secret in Hollywood with all the leaks. But anyways, let's talk about the return of Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I feel that both actors just managed to slip back into their roles perfectly, even after so long since they played their version of Spider-Man. I also like how these two versions of Spider-Man aren't overshadowing the main focus of the movie, which was Tom Holland's Spider-Man instead. They act like a guide, guiding him through a hard time and teaching him the things they know. The interaction between the three Spider-Mans was just a joy to watch, seeing them work together and fight together. There were a lot of fan service moments as well. I do want to mention Andrew Garfield though. I feel like out of the two Spider-Mans returning, he was the one that caught my attention the most with his acting. Especially the moment when he catches MJ. That one moment of acting, even though it was just brief, it was quite deep and it just tells so much about what this character has been through since we last saw him. And I do wish that the movie let that moment play out a little bit longer, but for what we got, I am glad they did it that way. This movie was just a roller coaster of emotions. I laughed, I gasped, I was amazed, I was shocked, and I even teared while watching this movie. There was a lot of humor in this movie, but I feel like the MCU is slowly doing better at drawing the line of when to have humor and when not to have humor. Though it still has moments where the humor just felt unnecessary and annoying, which is a classic MCU issue, but they are doing better. As for the emotional and heavy moments, I have to give props to Tom Holland, who really upped his skills in the movie. He really brought on a lot of emotional scenes, especially the part where Aunt May died. The reaction, the moment where it played out, I I really like how the movie slowed down in that moment just to give Tom Holland act out the emotions and letting us as an audience feel that emotion as well. And another reason why the emotional scenes hit that much was because of the score. It really brought out the emotions. And another reasons of all the emotion was, of course, the fan service moments. But they weren't just pure fan service. They were fan service with purpose to the story and character development of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And it didn't drown out the main focus of the movie, and that I really appreciate. As for the villains of the movie, and which there were 5 of them, and given the runtime and the amount of things this movie had to cover, it is understandable that the movie wasn't able to develop all of them. And it was also understandable that they didn't do that since all the villains' backstory were already covered in the other live action iteration of Spider-Man movies. Though I feel like out of the 5, Green Goblin was definitely the highlight for me. Even after almost 2 decades, Willem Dafoe just slips back into this role not just flawlessly, he elevates the character with his range of acting, and I will say, I feel like the Green Goblin in this movie was way more menacing in this than he was in the first Spider-Man movie. Doc Ock was another great character as well. As for Electro, I thought they did a decent job with him, but they mainly make him look cooler in this movie as compared to the previous movie where he looked just weird in my opinion. As for Sandman and Lizard, they didn't really have an arc cause they were just there. But for the fan service moment with them, I think yeah, the movie just wanted them to be there. So I don't have much to say about these 2 characters. But as for the villains overall, I think the movie did give enough time to each of the character to show their personality and what they have been up to since the movie and how their reaction to all of this is, and that I can appreciate. Now on to the action of this movie. I thought it was pretty good, not as good as Shang-Chi for sure. But what I really like about some of the action scenes in this movie was that the fight just felt hairy and raw between the characters. For example, Peter Parker fighting Green Goblin in the middle of the movie, and at the end of the movie, there was just so much emotion along with the action scenes. You can feel the rage coming from Peter, and you can feel the insanity from Green Goblin. And it just makes the action sequence feel more than just 2 people throwing punches around. Though during the last action sequence, there were some moments where the punches, the strikes felt weightless. It didn't have weight to them, and I don't know. I think maybe it was because of some of the stunt work that wasn't done quite well. But overall, the action was good. Now, as much as I enjoyed this movie, it is not flawless. And especially with the pacing of the first 10 to 20 minutes of the movie. I understand that they needed to set all the things out to get Peter Parker to ask Doctor Strange to make people forget that he is Spider-Man, but the whole process just felt rushed and rather underdeveloped. And I really wish we saw how his life was affected before we went on to see Peter Parker meet Doctor Strange. Of course, in the movie, we did see that, but I felt that the motivation for him to go look for Doctor Strange wasn't enough. They could have done more to make me convinced that Peter needed everyone to forget that he was Spider-Man. But other than the first act, the second and third act pacing works just fine for me. And besides that, there were some plot holes that didn't really come to mind while watching the movie, but while processing the movie afterwards, I found a few plot holes that it feels big enough to diminish my opinion of this movie a bit. And there were some weird choices made by some of the characters, and the magic spells in this movie didn't make a whole lot of sense. But overall, these flaws didn't really affect my overall experience while watching the movie. Overall, I thought that Spider-Man No Way Home was a great experience, and it is my favorite MCU movie of this year for sure. What do you think about this movie? Did you love it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hated it? I'm pretty sure that we will have different opinions on this movie, so if you want to share your thoughts, feel free to do so and share them down in the comment section below, and look out for my Spider-Man movie ranking, and stay safe and stay tuned.